Well, good evening. Welcome to the video for lessons 10.2 and 10.3, where we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting integers. And this is the three commandments that you've seen on the sideboard all year long. Okay, we started pre-algebra with this, and so this is a subject that you have kind of been exposed to, and now we're going to actually do it with course 1. So pay close attention. Let's talk first about the three commandments. Okay, the three commandments. And I did this years ago and kind of made them kind of like old English. And they go as follows. When we're adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, the first commandment is thou shalt not subtract. Instead, we're going to always add the opposite. So really, the first commandment takes care of all of lesson 10.3, where we're subtracting integers, by changing them instead into addition problems. The second commandment says if the two things and it only works for addition problems, so that's why we have to fix any subtraction problems first. The second commandment says that if we're adding two things that have the same sign, either both positive or both negative, we just find the sum of the values. So if we have a negative 3 and a negative 8, 3 and 8 is 11. If we had a positive 3 and a positive 8, 3 and 8 is 11. Okay, that's all you do for the second commandment. If, on the other hand, the two numbers have different signs, one positive and one's negative, it does not matter which one's bigger and which one's smaller. You just take the bigger number, the bigger value, and subtract the smaller value and get the difference. So if the two things have different values, different signs, that's what this diff stands for, find the difference of the values. And then the third commandment really applies more to the second example where we have a difference, and it says, thou shalt keep the sign of the larger value. Okay, meaning that if you have one positive and one negative, you're going to find the difference, and the one that's going to win the tug of war is the one with the bigger value. Obviously, if both numbers that we're adding together are both negative, you're going to get a negative answer. I mean, think about it. If I owe somebody $3 and I owe somebody else $4, I put 3 and 4 together, that's 7, but it's going to be $7 that I owe. It's going to be a negative 7. Okay? And likewise, if I add two things that are positives together, positive 3 and positive 7 would give me a positive 10. It's only when we have one positive, one negative, and we have a little tug of war going on, that we have to pay attention to the third commandment. And it's only when I start out with a subtraction problem we have to use the first commandment. So really, the second commandment is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to do. All right, let's start right there with the second commandment then. So here are 5 examples where in each of these cases we're adding two integers together. One positive, one negative. Maybe they're both negative, maybe they're both positive. Okay, so let's go through the commandments. So the second commandment says if the two numbers have different signs, find the difference. If they have the same sign, find the sum. So 3 and negative 8 clearly have different signs, and the difference between 3 and 8 is 5. Okay, and then the third commandment says to keep the sign of the larger value. So of 3 and 8, 8 is the bigger value, and it's negative, so it wins the tug of war. So the final answer here is negative 5. In the next example, we have negative 7 and negative 2. They're both negative, so we're going to find the sum of 7 and 2, which is 9. And since they're both negative, it doesn't really matter which one's the bigger sign. Either way, we're going to get a negative 9. Okay? All right, let's continue on. Okay, in the next one, it's really just a plain old regular addition, and I just kind of mixed it in. But we have a positive 8 and a positive 4, and I just wanted you to realize that the rules that you've always used since first and second grade still apply. So these are both the same sign. They're both positive, so we add 8 and 4, we get 12. And keep the sign of the larger value. Well, they're both positive, so it's obviously positive 12. The next one, a negative 4 plus a positive 8. They're different signs, so find the difference, which is 4. Keep the sign of the larger value, which in this case is the positive 8, and so we'll get 4. Oops, sorry about the doorbell there. All right, and let's do one more addition problem. Negative 12 plus a positive 7. One's positive, one's negative, so we're going to find the difference between 12 and 7, which is 5. And this time the negative is the bigger value, so it's going to win the tug of war. All right, so all of these are really just an application of the second commandment. And also the third commandment about whether to keep a positive or a negative for the final answer. All right, now let's dig into the first commandment. I want you to notice that these 4 problems, each of them starts out as a subtraction problem. So the very first thing that we are going to do with these problems is we are first going to change them into an addition problem. And if you remember what the first commandment says, it says, thou shalt not subtract, instead, ... See these ... here? Instead, add the opposite. So what that basically means is squeeze a plus sign in. So 12 minus 20 is really 12 plus a negative 20. 3 minus 7 is 3 plus a negative 7. Negative 14 minus 11 is negative 14 plus negative 11. And 17 minus 9 is 17 plus negative 9. And so basically you realize all that's happening here is the minus signs are becoming negatives, okay? And we're squeezing a plus in. Now, all of these problems are just like the ones we did before. All right, so let's go ahead and solve these. 12 plus negative 20. Using the second commandment, we see that they're different, so we're going to find the difference, which is 8. And the third commandment says to keep the sign of the larger value, which is obviously the negative 20, and so we get negative 8. In the second problem going across, we have negative 14 and negative 11. Both of these are negative, so we're going to find the sum of 14 and 11, which is 25. They're both negative, so the larger sign is clearly negative, so we get negative 25. 3 plus negative 7. They're different signs, so find the difference, which is 4, keep the negative. And finally, the last one, 17 plus a negative, that's a negative 9. Sorry about that. Their difference, one's positive, one's negative, so the difference is 8. And the positive wins the tug of war, so we get positive 8. Okay? So that is applying the first commandment first to change the black equation, the black expressions into the yellow ones. And then again, we're going to apply the second command and third commandments to find the actual sum of the integers. All right, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to go ahead and try a few on your own. So pause the video, and I want you to quickly on a piece of paper copy these 6 expressions down. If it's a minus subtraction problem, go ahead and first write it as plus the opposite, and then I want you to find the final answers and circle them. Okay? As soon as you're done, press play again on the video and see if your answers match our answers. Okay, the first one, they're different signs. They're already being added. They're different signs, so the difference is 5, and the negative wins the tug of war, so it's negative 5. Let's go down this time. The second problem, again, they are different signs, so we're going to find the difference of 11 and 4, which is 7. And again, the negative is the bigger value. 11 is a bigger value than 4, so it wins the tug of war, so we end up with negative 7. Negative 20 minus 30 has to be written as negative 20 plus a negative 30. As soon as I do that, I can see I'm adding two things with the same sign. 20 plus 30 is 50. Keep the negative. The next one, I'm going to change to 16 plus a negative 25. And they're different signs, so find the difference of 25 and 16. Now, that one's a little harder, and so if you can't do that quick in your head because your brain's tired, just come over here and show a little work. Okay, and 15 minus 6 is 9. So the difference between 25 and 16 is 9. And the 25 is the bigger value, so we keep the negative of the 25. Negative 5 plus negative 8, it's already an addition problem, so we don't need to worry about the first commandment. They're both negative, so we're going to add the value together. 8 plus 5 is 13. And they're both negative, so we're going to have a negative 13. And the last problem, I'm going to rewrite as 17 plus a negative 30. They're different, so let's take the difference, which is going to be 13, and then let's look at which one has a bigger value, and in this case the 30 does, so the negative wins, and we get negative 13. That's it, and so in under 10 minutes, that is exactly how you add and subtract integers. Now, this doesn't just work on integers, it also works on positive and negative fractions and mixed numbers, and decimals, but we're going to start with just plain old regular integers. Okay, once you get good at that, we'll get more complicated numbers into the mix. Well, thank you very much for watching, and we will go over and practice these in class. Have a good night.